Patricia had been working with alien species for 15 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The habitat dome sat empty before her, its artificial trees and heated rocks exactly as they should be. Everything looked perfect. Everything looked normal, except for one critical detail. The 6 baby dragons were gone. She walked through the space again, checking every corner, every crevice, every possible hiding spot. Her hands trembled as she activated her communicator. This was not just a problem. This was a disaster that could end everything humanity had worked for. The Dremori species had existed for thousands of years before humans even discovered fire. They were respected across hundreds of star systems. Their wisdom guided galactic policy. Their approval meant everything in council politics. And 3 months ago, they had done something unprecedented. They had trusted humans with their children. Ambassador Thelmara had arrived on Luna Station 7 with 6 eggs. Each one was the size of a watermelon, covered in scales that shimmered like opals. Patricia remembered that day clearly. The massive dragon-like being had stood in the reception area, her wings folded against her back, her golden eyes watching every human with intense focus. "My people have decided," Thelmara had said, her voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Humans are young, yes. Humans are imperfect, yes. But humans have shown something rare, genuine curiosity about others. We entrust you with our future." The eggs had hatched 2 months later. Patricia had been there for every moment. She watched as tiny claws cracked through shells. She saw the first baby dragon emerge, wet and wobbly, its eyes blinking in the light. Then came the others, one by one. The station staff had named them based on their scale colors: Ember with her red-gold shimmer, Smoke with his gray-blue tones, Twilight in deep purple, Dawn in soft pink, Storm in dark charcoal, and Whisper in pale silver. The hatchlings were beautiful. They were curious. They explored everything, chirping and tumbling over each other. They fit comfortably in human arms, warm and surprisingly heavy for their size. They loved to play chase through the habitat. They enjoyed when staff members read to them, their heads tilting as they listened to human voices. And now they were gone. Patricia forced herself to think clearly. She had checked the habitat at 8 in the morning, just like every day. The babies had been sleeping in their usual pile, tangled together for warmth. She had gone to attend a meeting about expanding the conservation program. The meeting lasted 2 hours. When she returned at 10:30, the habitat was empty. Security footage showed nothing unusual. At 9:15, all 6 babies were visible on camera, playing near their water pool. At 9:20, the cameras experienced a brief glitch, just 3 seconds of static. When the feed returned, the babies were gone. Just vanished, as if they had never existed. Patricia ran diagnostics on the environmental seals. All secure. She checked the ventilation system. All filters intact. She examined the habitat walls. No damage, no holes, no possible escape route. It made no sense. Baby dragons could not simply disappear through solid walls. The station went into immediate lockdown. Every corridor sealed. Every ship grounded. Every person accounted for. Patricia sent emergency messages to Earth, to the Galactic Council, to Ambassador Thelmara's ship in orbit. Then she organized search teams. Staff members spread through the station, checking every room, every closet, every storage area. Engineers crawled through maintenance tunnels. Scientists scanned with thermal sensors. Security reviewed every second of footage from every camera in the facility. Hours passed. Then a full day. No trace of the hatchlings anywhere. Ambassador Thelmara arrived within 30 hours. Patricia met her at the docking bay, her stomach twisted with dread. The dragon's face was unreadable, but her movements were stiff, controlled. This was grief being held back by sheer willpower. "Show me," Thelmara said. They walked through the habitat together. The ambassador touched the rocks where her children had basked. She examined the nesting area where they slept. She stood silently at the water pool, her reflection shimmering on the surface. "You promised they would be safe," Thelmara said quietly. "I know," Patricia replied. "And I will find them. I swear it." Many in my world said this was foolish. They said humans could not be trusted with such responsibility. I defended your species. I argued that you deserved this chance. The dragon's voice cracked slightly. "If my children are harmed, there will be consequences." Patricia understood. This was not a threat. It was a fact. The Dremori home fleet had already entered the solar system. 50 massive ships holding position beyond Mars. The message was clear. We are watching and we are ready. News of the disappearance spread quickly. Within 2 days, every major news network across human space was covering the story. Within 3 days, alien news services picked it up. Galactic Council representatives began making statements. Some expressed concern. Others expressed doubt about human competence. The Vrax Collective ambassador gave an interview. This incident proves humans are too impulsive, too disorganized for such delicate responsibilities. Perhaps their council membership should be reconsidered. The Talarian Prime Minister was more diplomatic but equally damning. We hope for a positive resolution, but this raises serious questions about human oversight capabilities. Patricia barely slept. She reviewed security footage until her eyes burned. She interviewed every staff member personally. She studied Dremori biology texts looking for clues. Baby dragons were curious but not adventurous enough to leave a safe, warm habitat on their own. They stayed close to familiar spaces. They did not wander far from food and heat sources, unless something had frightened them. But the cameras showed no signs of distress. No alarms had triggered. No unusual sounds had been recorded. The babies had simply been there one moment and gone the next. On the 4th day, Galactic Council investigators arrived. A team of 12 specialists from 6 different species, all experts in security, biology, or criminal investigation. They set up equipment throughout the station. They ran scans that Patricia did not even understand. They questioned everyone, often asking the same questions multiple times, looking for inconsistencies. Their preliminary report was not encouraging. "We find no evidence of abduction," the lead investigator stated. "We find no evidence of transport. We find no evidence of the hatchlings leaving the habitat. This suggests either a technology we cannot detect or an inside job by station personnel." Patricia felt sick. The investigators were implying that humans had deliberately harmed the babies. The political situation worsened by the hour. 3 council species officially withdrew their ambassadors from Earth. Trade agreements were suspended. Human ships were denied docking privileges at certain stations, and still no sign of the dragons. Patricia stood in the empty habitat on the 5th night, alone. She had failed. She had been given the greatest honor humanity had ever received, and she had failed. 6 innocent lives lost under her watch. An alliance crumbling because she could not keep children safe. She did not cry. She was too exhausted for tears. She just stood there, surrounded by artificial trees and heated rocks, wondering where everything had gone so terribly wrong. Outside the habitat dome, Luna's surface stretched gray and lifeless. Earth hung in the black sky, blue and beautiful. From here it looked so peaceful. But Patricia knew better. Down there, billions of humans watched and worried. Their future in the stars depended on 6 baby dragons that nobody could find, and time was running out. Leo Matsuda finished trimming the last customer's hair and flipped the shop sign to closed. The small barber shop on New Vancouver Station had been his life for 8 years now. Simple work, honest work. He swept up the day's clippings and cleaned his scissors just like he did every evening. His tablet buzzed with a news alert. He almost ignored it, but something about the headline caught his attention. Dremori hatchlings missing from Luna Station. Leo sat down slowly and read the article. Then he read another, and another. By the time he finished, an hour had passed and his decision was made. He needed to go to Luna Station. His friends thought he was crazy. "What are you going to do?" asked Walter, who owned the noodle shop next door. "You're a barber, not a detective." "I don't know," Leo admitted. "But everyone's looking with computers and sensors. Maybe they need someone to just look with eyes." "Luna Station is 2 weeks away by civilian transport," Walter pointed out. "Then I better leave soon." Leo had enough savings to cover the trip. He closed his shop, packed a bag, and bought passage on a cargo hauler heading toward Earth's moon. The journey gave him plenty of time to read everything he could find about Dremori biology and behavior. Baby dragons instinctively sought warmth and small spaces. They nested together for comfort. They responded to calm voices. They were curious but cautious, likely to hide if frightened rather than confront danger. These were prey animal behaviors, Leo realized. Adult Dremori might be large and powerful, but their babies still carried instincts from some ancient past when they needed to hide from predators. When Leo finally arrived at Luna Station, the place felt like a war zone. Security checkpoints everywhere. Armed guards, tense faces. He had to wait 3 hours just to get clearance to enter, and even then, they assigned him a handler who followed him everywhere. "I'm here to help search," Leo explained to the board security officer. "Right. You and about 500 other volunteers. Most of them we sent home."
"What makes you special?"
"Nothing," Leo said honestly. "But I'm here anyway." They processed him through anyway, probably because turning away volunteers looked bad on camera. Leo received a temporary ID badge and a stern lecture about not interfering with official investigations. Then they turned him loose in the common areas. Leo did not join the search teams. Instead, he went to the station cafeteria and ordered tea. He sat at a table near the serving line and just watched people. He listened to conversations. Station staff looked exhausted. They spoke in quiet, worried tones. "I can't believe they just vanished," one engineer said to another. "We've searched everywhere 3 times over." "The council investigators think someone took them," his companion replied. "Like one of us would hurt those babies. It's insulting." Leo finished his tea and started walking. Not searching, just walking. He explored the public areas, noting the layout. Luna Station had been built in 3 phases over 20 years. The oldest sections showed their age, with narrow corridors and outdated lighting. The newer sections were spacious and modern. The newest wing, where the conservation habitat was located, gleamed with fresh paint and advanced systems. He found a public terminal and accessed the station directory. The system was extensive. Residential areas, laboratories, storage facilities, maintenance tunnels, recycling centers, power stations. Leo studied the maps for hours, his barber's eye for detail noting inconsistencies. There, on the sub-level schematics, several sections marked as under renovation 2 months ago. But the renovation status had never been updated to complete. Leo zoomed in. These were old crew quarters beneath the residential wing. The expansion project had involved sealing off some old ventilation shafts and opening new ones. Sealing off. But had they actually finished? Leo found a station engineer in the corridors, a young woman with grease stains on her uniform. "Excuse me, I have a question about the renovations in sub-level 3. She looked at him suspiciously. "Who are you?" "Just a volunteer. Leo Matsuda. I was looking at the station maps and noticed some sections marked as under renovation." "Were those completed?" "Yeah, finished about 6 weeks ago. Why?" "The old ventilation shafts that were sealed." "How were they sealed?" The engineer shrugged. "Standard procedure. Welded plates over the main access points." "Why does it matter? Were the entire shafts sealed or just the access points?" She paused, thinking. "Just the access points, I think. The shafts themselves are still there, just disconnected from the active system. Too expensive to rip them out completely. So something small could still move through those old shafts? I mean, technically, if they could get past the sealed access plates. But those plates are solid. Nothing's getting through without cutting equipment." She looked at him more carefully. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking baby dragons are small. And curious. And if they found a crack, even a small one, they might explore." The engineer's eyes widened. "Oh no. We did find some cracks during inspection. Small ones. Stress fractures from the station settling. We were supposed to patch them, but that was low priority because those shafts aren't active anymore." She pulled out her tablet, fingers flying over the screen. "Let me check something." Leo waited while she searched through maintenance records. "Here," she said finally. "Sub-level 3, Sector 7, old residential area. We found 3 stress fractures in the sealed ventilation access. Largest was maybe 4 inches wide. We scheduled repair for next month because it wasn't urgent." She looked up at Leo. "You think the hatchlings got in there?" "I think it's worth checking. But that area's been scanned multiple times. Thermal sensors, motion detectors, everything. Did those sensors work through metal ventilation shafts?" The engineer's face went pale. "The old shafts are lined with thermal insulation. It was an old design before modern climate systems. If something was inside those shafts, our sensors might not pick it up." 20 minutes later, Leo stood with the engineer and a security officer outside a sealed door in sub-level 3. The area looked abandoned. Dust coated everything. Emergency lighting provided the only illumination, casting strange shadows. "This section hasn't been used in 5 years, the security officer said. "We're scheduled to convert it to storage eventually." The engineer examined the sealed ventilation access on the wall. The metal plate had been welded in place, but along one edge, a dark crack ran vertically. She inserted a thin tool into the crack and pulled. The fracture was wider than it looked, opening to a gap perhaps 5 inches across. "This leads into the old shaft network," she said. "It runs through the walls all the way down to sub-level 4. Leo knelt and examined the crack. In the dust at the bottom he saw marks, tiny scratches as if something with claws had squeezed through. His heart beat faster. "I need to go in there." "Absolutely not," the security officer said immediately. "These are unauthorized areas. We need to send a proper team." "A proper team will bring equipment and lights and noise," Leo said. "If the babies are in there and they're scared, that'll frighten them more. Let me try first. I'm small enough to fit, and I know how to stay calm around nervous animals." "Animals? These are intelligent beings. They're also scared children if they're in there at all." The security officer looked uncertain. The engineer bit her lip. "He has a point. And honestly, what's the worst that happens? He crawls around in some old shafts and finds nothing?" After 10 minutes of argument and 3 calls to supervisors, they granted Leo permission. 1 hour, they said. If he found nothing, they would send in a full team. The engineer helped him remove enough of the cracked plate to create an opening. Leo grabbed a flashlight and a backpack containing 6 heated blankets he had brought from his ship. "Why heated blankets?" the security officer asked. "Because if they're in there, they're cold and scared. Warmth helps." Leo squeezed through the opening. The ventilation shaft beyond was dark and cramped. He could move, but barely. The metal walls pressed close on both sides. His flashlight beam cut through darkness filled with dust. He started crawling. The shaft ran horizontally for about 20 feet, then angled downward. Leo moved slowly, careful not to make sudden sounds. He watched for more scratch marks. There, on the metal surface, and there, something with claws had definitely come this way. The shaft split into 2 directions. Leo chose the path that angled further down. His knees ached from crawling on metal. Sweat dripped into his eyes despite the cool temperature. He had no idea how long he had been in here. Time felt strange in the darkness. The shaft opened into a vertical drop. Leo shined his light down and saw another horizontal shaft about 8 feet below. He maneuvered carefully, lowering himself down, his fingers finding holes in the ventilation ridges. He kept going. Down, forward, around corners, through the walls of Luna Station like a ghost. And all the while he watched for signs. More scratches. A bit of fabric that looked like it had been pulled from somewhere. A tiny scale. Red gold in his flashlight beam. Ember. One of the babies had definitely been here. Leo's communicator crackled. "Matsuda, you've been in there 45 minutes. "Status? I'm following a trail," he whispered. "I need more time. Static, then. 15 more minutes. Then we're coming in." Leo moved faster, ignoring his aching body. The shaft led to a junction where multiple ducts came together. And there, barely visible in the darkness, was a gap in the wall. Not part of the ventilation system. This was damage, old structural settling that had created a crack between panels. Leo squeezed through into a room beyond. The room smelled stale, like air that had not moved in years. Leo's flashlight swept across forgotten furniture, old equipment, and boxes of supplies that nobody had bothered to move during station expansions. This must have been crew quarters from the original Luna Station construction, abandoned when newer sections were built. He moved the light slowly, searching. In the far corner, behind a stack of storage containers, something reflected in the beam. Scales, multiple colors, tangled together. Leo's breath caught. He approached carefully, each step deliberate and quiet. As he got closer, he could make out individual forms. 6 small dragons huddled together in a nest they had made from torn insulation, and what looked like old blankets dragged from somewhere. They were completely still. For one terrible moment, Leo thought they were dead. Then he saw the slight rise and fall of breathing. Slow breathing, very slow. They were alive, but barely. Leo knelt beside them. Up close, he could see how thin they had become. Their scales looked dull. Their breathing was shallow. But they were alive, and that was what mattered. He did not reach for his communicator yet. Instead, he carefully opened his backpack and pulled out the heated blankets. He activated them one by one, letting them warm up, then gently draped them over the sleeping hatchlings. The effect was not immediate. Leo sat there waiting, watching. Minutes passed. Then one of the babies, the red gold one named Ember, stirred slightly. Her small chest expanded with a deeper breath. One eye cracked open, unfocused. Leo stayed very still. He had worked with nervous animals before. Sudden movements meant danger. Calm stillness meant safety. "Hey there," he whispered. "You're okay. You're safe now." Ember's eye focused on him. For a moment, Leo thought she might panic. But the warmth of the blanket and his quiet voice seemed to register as comfort rather than threat. She made a small sound somewhere between a chirp and a sigh. "That's right," Leo continued, his voice barely above a whisper.
You've been lost, haven't you?
"Been scary and cold, but it's okay now. We're going to get you home." Another hatchling stirred. The gray-blue ones smoke, then twilight and purple. One by one, they began to wake from their deep sleep. And as they woke, they did something Leo did not expect. They crawled toward him. Ember came first, weak and wobbly. She climbed onto his lap with clumsy movements. Then Smoke draped himself across Leo's leg. Twilight wedged herself against his side. Dawn, Storm, and Whisper followed, until all 6 baby dragons had arranged themselves on and around Leo's body. They were surprisingly heavy, their combined weight pressing down on him, but he did not move. He just sat there, letting them arrange themselves however they wanted. They made soft sounds, little chirps and rumbles. The sound of relief, the sound of finally feeling safe again. Leo understood what had happened. These babies had somehow found their way into the ventilation system, probably exploring like curious children do. They had gotten lost in the maze of shafts and crawl spaces, unable to find their way back, frightened and alone. They had done what their instincts told them to do. They had found a hidden space and entered a state of hibernation to survive. The Draymori were reptilian. When faced with extreme stress, their bodies could slow down, conserve energy, wait for rescue. It was a survival mechanism that had served their species for millions of years, but it meant these babies had been unconscious for nearly 2 weeks, their bodies barely functioning, holding on to life by the thinnest thread. If Leo had not found them soon, another few days might have been too long. Now they pressed against him, absorbing his body heat through the heated blankets, their survival instincts recognizing warmth and safety. Leo was not their parent. He was not even the same species. But in this moment, he was the first thing that had made them feel safe since they got lost. And they clung to that feeling. Leo finally reached for his communicator with one hand, careful not to disturb the hatchlings draped across his chest and lap. "This is Leo Matsuda," he said quietly. "I found them. Sub-level 4, Old Crew Quarters, Section 12. They're alive. Send medical, but slowly. And someone bring water and food." The response came immediately, multiple voices overlapping in excitement and relief. Leo heard someone crying. Someone else shouted for medical teams. The chaos of good news after days of dread. "Listen," Leo said, cutting through the noise. "Tell them to come in quietly. No sudden sounds. No bright lights. These babies are in shock and they've bonded to me for safety. We need to do this carefully." It took nearly an hour for the medical team to navigate through the ventilation shafts to reach Leo's location. They had to widen the passages in several places. They brought portable lights that they kept dimmed. Dr. Patricia led the team. Her face streaked with tears she did not bother to hide. She entered the old crew quarters and stopped, staring at the sight of Leo sitting on the floor, covered in baby dragons. "They won't move," Leo explained softly. "Every time I try to shift, they grip tighter. I think they're scared that if they let go, they'll be lost again." "Can you stand?" Patricia asked. Leo tried. The hatchlings adjusted their weight but did not let go. He managed to get to his feet, wobbling under the load. The babies arranged themselves across his shoulders, chest, and arms. Ember perched on his left shoulder. Smoke wrapped around his neck like a scaly scarf. The others distributed themselves across his torso, their claws gripping his clothes. "Okay then," Patricia said, her voice shaking. "We'll do this your way. Can you walk?" Leo tested his balance. Nearly 200 pounds of dragon distributed across his body. His legs trembled, but he could manage. "Yeah, slowly, but yeah." The journey back through the station took 40 minutes. Leo had to stop several times to rest. His muscles screamed in protest. Sweat soaked his clothes, but every time he paused, the hatchlings made distressed sounds, so he kept going. Medical staff walked beside him, monitoring the baby's vital signs with handheld sensors. "Severe dehydration," one medic reported. "Malnutrition. Body temperatures dangerously low, but no permanent damage that I can detect. The hibernation state saved them." They reached the medical bay and Leo carefully sat down on a padded examination table. The hatchlings still refused to move. Medical staff worked around them. gently inserting fluid lines, checking temperature, examining each baby while they remained draped on Leo. The babies drank water slowly, just sips at first. Then they managed small bites of food, a special nutrient paste that the medical team had prepared. Through it all, they stayed pressed against Leo, as if he was the only stable point in a frightening world. Ambassador Thelmara arrived 2 hours later. The massive dragon had to duck to enter the medical bay. Her golden eyes found her children immediately, and the sound she made was something between a roar and a sob. The hatchlings' heads lifted at their mother's voice. They chirped in recognition, but they did not move from Leo, Patricia explained quietly. It's a bonding reaction. When Dremora young are in extreme distress, they imprint on the first source of safety and warmth. It's temporary but strong. They know she's their mother, but right now Leo represents survival. Thelmara approached slowly. She lowered her massive head to be level with her children. She made soft rumbling sounds, the dragon equivalent of gentle words. The babies responded, their chirps more animated now. But still they clung to Leo. You found them, Thelmara said, her eyes meeting Leo's. You saved their lives. I just followed scratches and hunches, Leo replied. His arms ached from holding still for so long. They saved themselves, really. That hibernation thing. Pretty smart survival trick. Most who searched used advanced technology. You used observation and intuition. Why? Leo shrugged carefully, mindful of the dragons on his shoulders. I'm a barber. I spend my days reading people, figuring out what they need even when they don't say it. I figured scared kids are scared kids, whether they're human or dragon. They'd go somewhere that felt safe, somewhere small and hidden, somewhere warm. I just looked for that kind of place. A barber, Thelmara repeated. She made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been something else. The greatest search in recent galactic history, and it is solved by a barber from an asteroid colony. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one, Leo said. Over the next 3 days, the hatchlings gradually recovered. They drank more water. They ate more food. Their scales regained their luster. Their movements became more energetic. And slowly, carefully, they began to transfer their trust from Leo back to their mother. It was a delicate process. Medical staff advised patience. Leo spent hours each day sitting with both the babies and Thelmara, creating a bridge between them. He would pet one of the hatchlings, then gently guide it toward its mother's massive form. The babies would hesitate, then take those first tentative steps. Ember was the first to fully return to Thelmara. She climbed onto her mother's foreleg and then up to her neck, settling into a hollow there that seemed designed for exactly that purpose. The other babies followed over the following days, each at their own pace. But they still wanted Leo nearby. If he tried to leave the medical bay, they became distressed. So Leo stayed, sleeping in a chair beside their recovery area, waking whenever one of them chirped for reassurance. On the 4th day, Leo told Patricia he needed to leave soon. His shop had been closed for 3 weeks. His savings were running low. He had done what he came to do. The babies did not take the news well. When Leo stood to pack his few belongings, all 6 hatchlings swarmed him, chirping frantically. Thelmara watched this with her unreadable golden eyes. They are not ready to lose you, the ambassador said. I know, Leo admitted. But I have a life to get back to. Stay 1 more week. Help them finish this transition. I will compensate you for lost business. Leo wanted to refuse. He was not comfortable accepting money for this. But the hatchling's distress was real, and 1 more week would not hurt. Okay, he agreed. 1 more week. News of the rescue spread across human space within hours. Within a day, it reached every corner of the galaxy. The story was too good not to travel fast. Missing dragon babies found by a simple barber who used common sense instead of advanced technology. Leo woke on his 5th day at Luna Station to find reporters waiting outside the medical bay. Station security kept them back, but their cameras recorded everything through the windows. He felt uncomfortable with the attention. He had just done what needed doing, but apparently that made him a story. Patricia brought him breakfast and an apologetic smile. I'm sorry. I tried to keep this quiet, but too many people knew. The council wants to interview you. Earth's government wants to give you a medal, and about 40 news networks want exclusive rights to your story. Leo ate his eggs slowly. Across the medical bay, the hatchlings were playing with Thelmara, climbing over their mother's large form while she watched them with obvious relief. They were getting stronger every day, I don't want medals or interviews, he said finally. I know. But this is bigger than you now. This whole incident almost destroyed humanity's relationship with the Galactic Council. You fixed that. People want to understand how. I followed scratch marks and thought about where scared kids would hide. That's it. That's the whole story. Patricia sat down across from him. Actually, that's exactly why this story matters. Do you know how many advanced civilizations searched for those babies? Species with telepathy, with quantum sensors, with predictive algorithms. All of them failed. Then a human with a flashlight and basic reasoning succeeded. It says something about how humanity approaches problems. It says I got lucky. No. It says you thought like a parent instead of a scientist. There's a difference. The Galactic Council called an emergency session for that afternoon. They wanted Leo to attend, to give testimony about the rescue. He tried to refuse, but Thelmara herself asked him to come. My people need to hear this directly from you, she said. And the council needs to understand what happened here. So Leo found himself putting on borrowed formal clothes and riding a shuttle up to the council station that orbited Earth. The place was massive, a ring structure that rotated to provide artificial gravity. Representatives from 300 species worked here, debating laws and policies that affected trillions of beings. Leo had never felt smaller in his life. The council chamber was a circular room with seats arranged in tiers. Each species had their own section with appropriate environmental controls. The Vrax collective representatives sat in a humid section with dim lighting. The Talarian delegation occupied seats near bright heat lamps. Dozens of other species filled the remaining spaces, creating a visual chaos of different body types and colors. Ambassador Thelmara stood at the center speaking platform, her massive form somehow graceful in the large space. Leo sat in a witness chair to the side, trying not to fidget. This council convened 3 weeks ago to discuss the failure of humanity to protect Draymora Young, Thelmara began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. Many spoke of removing Earth from council membership. Some suggested sanctions. A few even proposed military oversight of human space stations. Murmurs of agreement from several sections. Leo noticed that many representatives would not even look toward the human delegation. Today I stand before you to report that my children are safe, Thelmara continued. They were found by a human volunteer, not by advanced sensors, not by military search teams, not by council investigators with their sophisticated equipment, by a barber named Leo Matsuda, who used observation and empathy to locate what everyone else missed. She turned to look at Leo. Come forward, please. Leo stood on shaking legs and walked to the speaking platform. Hundreds of alien eyes watched him. He felt sweat forming on his forehead. Tell them how you found my children, Thelmara said gently. Leo cleared his throat. Public speaking had never been his strength. I looked at the station maps. I talked to people who worked there. I asked where scared children would go if they were lost and frightened. Small spaces, warm spaces, places where they could hide. Then I followed the evidence until I found them. That is all, a voice called out. Leo recognized the Vrax representative. You simply looked and found them? Well, I crawled through about 3 hours of ventilation shafts. That part wasn't fun. But yeah, basically I just looked in places that made sense for scared kids to hide. And what training do you have in search and rescue? The Vrax representative pressed. What advanced degrees in xenobiology or child psychology? None, Leo admitted. I cut hair for a living. Then explain how you succeeded where trained professionals failed. Leo thought about how to answer that. I think maybe that's why I succeeded. I didn't try to outthink the problem with fancy equipment. I just thought about what those babies were feeling. They were lost. They were scared. They were cold. Where would I go if I felt like that? I'd find somewhere small where I could curl up and feel hidden. Somewhere with a little warmth. That's just basic emotional logic. A different representative spoke up, this one from the Talarian delegation. Are you suggesting that empathy is more valuable than technology? No, Leo said. I'm saying they work better together. All that technology told you where the babies weren't. That was useful information. It helped me narrow down where they might be. But technology can't tell you how a scared child thinks. You need empathy for that. The Vrax representative made a dismissive gesture. This is fortunate coincidence, nothing more. One human got lucky. Thelmara's voice cut across the chamber like a blade. I disagree. This human demonstrated something I have rarely seen in my 1200 years. He combined observation with emotional understanding. He did not assume his technology would solve everything. He remembered that my children, despite being a different species, were still children. That wisdom transcends luck. She paused, letting her words settle. The Dremori have existed for millennia before most species in this chamber achieved spaceflight. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We have witnessed countless demonstrations of technological power. But we have rarely seen what this human showed. The wisdom to use simple tools wisely and the empathy to understand beings different from himself. Another representative spoke, this one from a species Leo did not recognize. Ambassador Thelmara, are you suggesting that humans have some unique quality? I am suggesting that humans have retained something many advanced species forget in their pursuit of technological perfection. They remember how to think with their hearts as well as their minds. They have not lost their connection to basic emotional truth in their rush to become sophisticated. The chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives argued. Others agreed. Leo just stood there, uncomfortable with being the center of such attention. He had found some lost children. Why was everyone making this complicated? A senior council member called for order. We have heard testimony about the rescue. Now we must address the broader question. Was this incident cause to question human membership in this council? The Vrax representative stood. I maintain that it was. The hatchlings were lost due to inadequate security measures. That they were found does not excuse the initial failure. Patricia stood from the human delegation section. The hatchlings were not lost due to negligence. They were lost because they were curious children who found a crack in a wall and went exploring. This could have happened anywhere. The fact that we found them, that we never gave up searching, that we reached out for volunteers from across human space to help, demonstrates our commitment. And yet it took a random civilian to solve the problem, the Vrax representative countered. Yes, Patricia agreed, because we were smart enough to accept help from anyone who offered, regardless of their credentials. Because we recognize that sometimes unconventional approaches work. That's not weakness, that's adaptability. Thelmara spoke again. The Dremori have made our decision. We are not withdrawing from our alliance with humanity. In fact, we are deepening it. We will be sending more of our young to human facilities. We will be sharing more of our technology and knowledge, because humans have proven they deserve our trust. The announcement stunned the chamber into silence. But they failed to protect your children, someone protested. They found my children when no one else could, Thelmara corrected. They mobilized their entire species to help. They did not make excuses or blame others. They took responsibility and worked until the problem was solved. That is the quality we value. She looked at Leo again. This Barber represents something important. He represents humans who care more about results than recognition, who use whatever tools they have, whether advanced or simple, who remember that beneath all our differences we share common emotions and needs. That is rare. That is valuable. That is why humanity deserves to be here. The debate continued for another hour, but the outcome was already clear. By the end, the council voted to not only maintain human membership but to expand human roles in several joint projects. The Vrax Collective abstained from the vote, but they did not push further objections. Afterward, in a private meeting room, Thelmara spoke with Leo alone. You do not understand what you have done, she said. I found your kids. That's what I understand. You changed how the galaxy sees your species. Before this, many viewed humans as clever but impulsive, powerful but immature. Now they see something different. They see a species that solves problems creatively, that values individuals regardless of status, that remembers compassion in crisis. Leo shrugged. I just did what anyone should do, but most would not have. Most would have assumed the experts would handle it. Most would have stayed home. You came despite having no authority, no special training, no guarantee of success. You came because you thought you might help. That is the human quality that matters most. She reached into a pouch on her harness and pulled out a small medallion. It was made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light. This is a Dremori honor marker. It has only been given to 17 beings in the last 1,000 years. It grants you citizenship in Dremori space. It means you will always be welcome among my people. Leo took the medallion, feeling its surprising weight. I don't know what to say. Say you will visit sometimes. My children will want to see you as they grow. I'd like that. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Thelmara asked, "Why did you really come? You must have known the chances of success were small." Leo thought about it. "When I was young, maybe 7 years old, I got lost in a big shopping complex. I wandered around for hours, getting more and more scared. Finally, a janitor found me, just a guy mopping floors. He didn't call security or make a big deal. He just sat down with me, told me it would be okay, and helped me find my parents. I never forgot that. How someone who wasn't important or powerful still took time to help a scared kid." Leo met the dragon's golden eyes. "I figured if I could do the same for your kids, I should at least try." Thelmara made that rumbling sound again. A janitor and a barber. Perhaps the galaxy has much to learn from those it considers ordinary. Leo spent 2 more weeks at Luna Station, helping the hatchlings complete their recovery. Each morning, he would arrive at the habitat to find 6 small dragons waiting at the entrance, chirping excitedly at his arrival. They had transferred most of their bonding back to Thelmara, but they still wanted Leo nearby. He would sit in the habitat while they played, reading books or just watching. Sometimes they would climb on him just for a few minutes as if checking that he was real. Then they would return to their games reassured. Patricia spent time with him during those weeks, asking questions about his thought process during the search. "I'm writing new protocols," she explained. "Based on what you did. We're calling it the Matsuda method. It combines technological scanning with intuitive observation. Teams will be trained in both." "That seems silly, naming it after me," Leo said. "It's not silly. It's important. What you did needs to be remembered and taught." One afternoon, while the hatchlings napped in a pile near the heating rocks, Thelmara joined Leo in the observation area. "They are healthy now," she said. "Tomorrow I must take them home. The Dremori Council wishes to see them, to celebrate their safe return." Leo had known this was coming, but it still made him sad. "They're good kids. You raised them well. They were raised here under your care as much as mine these past weeks. I just sat with them. You did the real work." Thelmara made a thoughtful sound. "You understand that this incident will create changes, yes? Across the galaxy, people are rethinking how they approach problems. Your species has shown that advancement does not require losing basic wisdom." "I don't know about all that," Leo said. "I just know those babies needed help. And that simplicity is precisely the point." The ambassador shifted her massive bulk to look at him directly. "Tell me, Leo Matsuda, what will you do now?" "Go home, open my barbershop. Get back to normal life. You could do more. The council has offered you positions. Earth's government wants you to lead new programs. You could be wealthy, influential." Leo shook his head. "That's not me. I'm a barber. I like cutting hair and talking to customers. That's enough. Even after all this? Especially after all this. This whole thing happened because I was just a regular person who cared. If I become some big important figure, I stop being that person." Thelmara rumbled approvingly. "Wise, many beings would chase the recognition. You understand that some things matter more." The next day, Leo stood with a crowd of station residents as Thelmara prepared to depart with her children. The hatchlings had grown noticeably larger in the past 3 weeks. They moved with more confidence, their scales brighter, their eyes alert. They surrounded Leo one last time, pressing against his legs, chirping their goodbyes. He knelt and petted each one, speaking softly. "You be good, Ember. Don't go exploring strange places, okay? Smoke, remember to listen to your mom. Twilight, keep being curious, but stay safe." He went through all 6, giving each a moment of attention. They seemed to understand this was farewell. Their chirps were sad but accepting. Thelmara waited patiently. When Leo finished, she lowered her head in a gesture of respect. "You will always be welcome in Dremori space, Leo Matsuda. Always. Thank you. Take care of them." "I shall. And thank you for taking care of them when I could not." The dragons departed through the docking bay, heading for their ship. Leo watched until they were out of sight, then returned to his temporary quarters to pack. Tomorrow he would catch a transport back to New Vancouver Station in his normal life. That evening, Patricia found him in the station cafeteria, eating dinner alone. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. "Please." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Patricia said, "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "When you first arrived, I barely noticed you. Just another volunteer, not particularly qualified. I was so focused on the official search, the advanced technology, the expert teams. I dismissed the idea that someone like you could help. You were doing your job. I was being arrogant. I forgot that expertise comes in many forms. You had life experience and emotional intelligence that all my degrees couldn't match. Leo shrugged. You found the babies in the end. That's what matters. No, you found them. I need to own that. And I need to remember it, because if this happens again in some other form, I don't want to make the same mistake. You're a good scientist, Patricia. You care about the beings in your care. That's what's important, she smiled. And you're a good barber who saved the alliance between species. That's pretty important, too. The next morning, Leo boarded a cargo transport heading toward the asteroid belt. The journey would take 2 weeks, just like the trip to Luna Station. He settled into his small passenger cabin and watched Earth shrink in the view screen. His tablet was full of messages. News networks wanting interviews, corporations offering sponsorships, government officials proposing jobs. He deleted them all except one, a simple message from Walter at the noodle shop. Your shop is fine. I've been watering your plant. Hurry back, we miss you. Leo smiled and typed a reply. On my way. Save me some noodles. New Vancouver Station looked exactly the same when Leo arrived. The mining colony on the asteroid rotated slowly, its lights twinkling against the dark of space. He took a shuttle to the docking bay and walked familiar corridors to his barber shop. The place was dusty but intact. He spent the rest of the day cleaning, organizing, making sure everything was ready to reopen. His scissors needed sharpening. His chairs needed adjusting. Normal, simple work that felt incredibly good. The next morning, he flipped the sign to open. Within an hour, Walter came by with noodles. You're famous, Walter said, grinning. I watched the council broadcast. Very impressive. I did what needed doing. Nothing more. The whole galaxy thinks you're a hero. The whole galaxy is making too big a deal of it. I'm just Leo. I cut hair. His first customer arrived an hour later, a regular named Ruth who worked in the mining operations. She sat in the chair and said, So saved any baby dragons lately? Leo laughed. Not this week. Just haircuts this week. Good, that's what I'm here for. Life returned to normal mostly. Customers asked about the rescue, but Leo kept his answers brief. Yes, he found the hatchlings. Yes, they were safe now. No, he didn't do anything special. The conversation would shift to local news, mining production, colony gossip. But things were different too in small ways. More alien visitors stopped by the colony, and many came to his shop. Not for haircuts always, just to meet him, to thank him, to tell him that his actions had changed how they viewed humans. A Talarian merchant came by one day. I voted against human council membership, he admitted. I thought your species too young, too reckless. But what you did, how you thought, it changed my mind. You showed wisdom that transcends age. I just looked for some lost kids, Leo replied. Yes, and in doing so, you demonstrated that wisdom is not about technology or longevity. It is about understanding and compassion. 3 months after Leo returned home, a package arrived at his shop. It was from Thelmara. Inside was a framed picture showing the 6 hatchlings, now noticeably larger, arranged on a Dremori nesting platform. They looked healthy and happy. Included was a note in flowing script. Leo, my children grow strong and curious. They ask about you often. Ember tried to hide in our ventilation system last week, searching for warm, dark places like Uncle Leo found. I had to explain that exploring is good, but getting lost is not. They made me promise to send you this picture. We all miss our friend. Visit when you can. You are always welcome. Thelmara. Leo hung the picture on his shop wall next to his barber license and a faded photo of his parents. Customers asked about it and he would tell them, just some kids I helped once. But late at night, when the shop was closed and the colony quiet, Leo would look at that picture and smile. Those babies were safe. They were growing. They were living their lives. And he had been part of making that possible. That was enough. That was everything. 6 months later, New Vancouver Station received an unusual visitor. A Dremori diplomatic ship, small but elegant, requested docking permission. The station administrator granted it, confused about why a Dremori vessel would visit a mining colony. Leo was halfway through a haircut when his shop door opened. He looked up to see Thelmara somehow squeezing through the entrance, her massive form barely fitting in the small space. Ambassador? Leo said, surprised. What are you doing here? Visiting a friend? Is that not permitted? Of course, You're a bit far from home. My children insisted. They wished to see Uncle Leo. Behind her, 6 young dragons entered the shop. They were much larger now, each the size of a large dog but still clearly juveniles. They swarmed Leo immediately, chirping and climbing, trying to fit themselves on him like they had when they were smaller. It didn't really work anymore. They were too big, but they tried anyway, and Leo laughed, petting them all, greeting each by name. The customer in the chair watched this with wide eyes. "Are those the dragons from the news?" "Yeah," Leo admitted. "These are the kids. They really do like you." "I guess so." Thelmara settled herself carefully in the small shop. "We were passing through this sector on diplomatic business. I told my children we were too busy to visit. They refused to eat until I agreed to stop here." "Stubborn, huh?" Leo said, still surrounded by juvenile dragons. "They learned it from their Uncle Leo, I suspect. The human who taught them that sometimes you must follow your instincts even when others say it is impossible." Leo finished his customer's haircut, gave a discount because the man had to deal with dragon interruptions, and then closed the shop early. He spent the afternoon with Thelmara and the hatchlings, hearing about their lives, their education, their growth. As evening approached, it was time for them to leave. The dragons were reluctant, but they obeyed their mother. They each touched their heads to Leo's hands, a gesture Thelmara explained was a dragon's way of saying until we meet again. "Thank you for this visit," Leo said. "It means a lot." "You saved their lives," Thelmara replied. "A brief visit is small thanks. You didn't need to thank me at all. That is why we wanted to." After they left, Leo reopened his shop and finished the day's appointments. That evening, Walter came by with noodles and questions. "So the dragons really did visit?" "Yeah, they're getting big. Growing up fast. Still remember you, though. I guess some connections stick, no matter what species you are." Walter grinned. "The barber who befriended dragons. That's quite a legacy. I'd settle for being the barber who gives good haircuts." "You're that too, Leo. You're that too." 5 years passed quickly. Leo's barber shop on New Vancouver Station remained exactly as it had always been. Small, clean, honest. The only visible change was the growing collection of pictures on the wall. Thelmara sent new photos every few months, showing the 6 dragons as they grew from juveniles into young adults. Leo watched them mature through these images. Ember developing the brilliant red-gold coloring that marked adult Dremori. Smoke growing sleek and powerful, all 6 becoming the magnificent beings they were meant to be. Each photo included a note, usually brief. Ember started flight training. Storm graduated top of his class. They all send their love. The shop stayed busy. Word had spread across the sector about the barber who had saved the Dremori Alliance. Beings from dozens of species made detours to visit New Vancouver Station, often specifically to meet Leo. He treated them all the same, friendly, professional, and unwilling to make a big deal about the past. A young human reporter came by one day, fresh out of journalism school and eager for a story. "People across human space see you as a hero," she said, camera recording. "How does that feel?" Leo trimmed a customer's hair, focused on his work. "I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm not a hero. I just helped some kids who needed help. Anyone would have done the same, but they didn't, you did. Because I happened to be there. Heroism is something else. Firefighters running into burning buildings, medics treating wounded under fire, teachers spending their own money to feed hungry students. That's heroism. I followed some scratches in the dust." The reporter pressed further. "But you've changed how the galaxy views humanity. That has to mean something." Leo paused, considering his words carefully. "If it did change anything, I'm glad. But I think people are giving me too much credit. Humans help each other every day. They help aliens every day. Most of it doesn't make the news. The only difference with me was that my small act happened to involve important political figures." The reporter seemed disappointed by the answer, but she thanked him and left. The video she produced was honest, showing Leo as he was, a quiet man who preferred simple work to recognition. It went viral anyway, precisely because it was so different from typical hero narratives. Luna Station 7 continued to thrive as the premier cross-species conservation facility. Patricia ran it with competence and care, implementing the Matsuda method across all her programs. The method was simple: use technology to gather data, but always consider the emotional and behavioral factors that machines couldn't measure. It proved remarkably effective. not just for lost beings, but for understanding stress, illness, and behavioral problems across species. Other facilities across human space adopted the approach. It spread beyond conservation into medicine, psychology, and even diplomacy. The core insight was always the same. Advanced technology worked best when paired with basic empathy and observation. The Galactic Council took notice. 3 years after the Dragon incident, they established the Matsuda Fellowship, a program that trained young beings from all species in combined technological and intuitive problem-solving. Leo declined to be involved directly, but gave permission for his name to be used if it helped the program. Meanwhile, Dremori-human relations deepened significantly. More Dremori young came to Luna Station, more humans visited Dremori worlds for cultural exchange, trade increased, joint research projects launched. The alliance that had nearly ended became one of the strongest in Council space. Telemara was appointed as the Dremori Prime Representative to the Galactic Council, the highest diplomatic position her species offered. In her first speech in that role, she spoke about the importance of learning from unexpected sources. 5 years ago, my children went missing, she told the assembled council. The crisis nearly destroyed an alliance. It was resolved not by military force or political maneuvering, but by one being who cared enough to look carefully and think wisely. This taught my people and should teach all of us that sophistication without wisdom is hollow. We must value both the advanced and the simple, both the expert and the ordinary, if we are to progress together. Her speech was discussed across galactic media for weeks. Some praised it. Others dismissed it as sentimentality. But it added to the growing perception that humans brought something unique to the galactic community. A retention of basic emotional connection even as they advanced technologically. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon in his shop, Leo received an unexpected message. It was from Patricia at Luna Station. Leo, I need your help. Not with dragons this time. We have a situation with some Talarian younglings. They're in medical care, recovering from malnutrition, but they won't eat. They're scared and stressed, and we can't figure out how to reach them. I know it's a lot to ask, but would you consider coming? Your approach might help. Leo read the message twice. He was older now, his hair graying, his back a bit stiffer in the mornings. The trip to Luna Station would take weeks, but the message said younglings were suffering. He closed his shop the next day and caught a transport toward Earth's moon. When he arrived at Luna Station, Patricia met him at the docking bay. She looked tired, worried. Thank you for coming. I know it's a long trip. Tell me about the younglings. They walked through the station as Patricia explained. 8 Talarian children, rescued from a failed colony where food supplies had run out. They were physically healthy now but psychologically traumatized. They huddled together, refusing to interact with staff, barely eating enough to survive. We've tried everything, Patricia said. Talarian counselors, specialized environments, medications. Nothing works. They're wasting away from stress. Leo visited the younglings in their habitat. They were small insectoid beings with delicate wings and large eyes. They had built a nest in the corner using provided materials, and they never left it. 8 pairs of eyes watched Leo enter, fearful and suspicious. He did not approach them. He simply sat down across the room and waited. An hour passed, then 2. The younglings stayed in their nest, but their attention never left him. Leo did not speak. He did not move unnecessarily. He just existed in their space, non-threatening and patient. On the 3rd hour, one youngling crept slightly out of the nest. Leo remained still. The youngling came closer, antennae twitching, assessing threat level. When it was about 5 feet away, it stopped. Leo spoke softly. Hi there. You've had a scary time, haven't you? The youngling froze. It's okay. You don't have to come closer. I just wanted you to know you're safe here. The scary stuff is over. The youngling stayed motionless for several minutes. Then slowly it crept back to the nest and communicated something to its companions. Leo saw antennae touching, wings flickering in patterns he didn't understand. He returned the next day and sat in the same spot. This time 2 younglings ventured out. They came a bit closer. Leo talked to them about simple things. The station, the stars visible from the viewports. How different species needed different things to feel safe. By the 4th day, all 8 younglings were sitting in a semicircle around Leo, still keeping distance but clearly engaged. He brought food and placed it between himself and them. He ate some, showing it was safe. Then he waited. The younglings conferred among themselves. Finally, the bravest one approached the food, grabbed a piece, and retreated. When nothing bad happened, the others followed. It took 2 weeks, but eventually the younglings began eating normally and interacting with station staff. The key, Leo explained to Patricia, was giving them control. They'd lost all control over their lives during the colony failure. Everything happened to them and they couldn't stop it. They needed to feel like they had choices again. So I let them choose when to approach, when to eat, when to trust. Forcing interaction just reminded them of helplessness. Patricia took notes. This is going into the protocols. We need to remember that trauma isn't just physical. Before Leo left to return home, the younglings did something unexpected. They wove him a small wall hanging using fibers from their nesting material. It depicted a simple scene. 8 small figures around one larger figure, all connected by delicate threads. It's a thank you, the Talarian counselor explained. They're saying you connected them back to the world. Leo accepted the gift with humility and hung it in his shop next to the dragon photos. Word of the Talarian rescue spread, though not as dramatically as the dragon incident, but it reinforced a pattern. When beings in crisis needed help, conventional approaches didn't always work. Sometimes the simplest approach was the right one. Patience, empathy, and letting the beings in distress lead the way to their own recovery. More facilities began requesting Leo's consultation on difficult cases. He accepted some, always with reluctance, and always returning to his barbershop as quickly as possible. He was not a professional counselor. He was just a person who paid attention. When Leo turned 60, the dragons came to visit again. They were fully mature now, enormous and magnificent. They arrived with Thelmara, who was now one of the most influential voices in the Galactic Council. The 6 of them could no longer fit in his shop, so they met in a docking bay that station administrators had cleared for the visit. The dragons had brought gifts, rare metals from their homeworld, star charts to systems humans had not yet explored, and most importantly, their time. Uncle Leo, Ember said, her voice now deep and resonant. We wanted you to know that we are all thriving. Smoke is a pilot, Twilight is a scientist, Dawn works in education, Storm is a security officer, Whisper is an artist, and I am training for diplomacy. You all found your paths, Leo said. That's wonderful. We found them because you found us, Ember continued. That night when we were lost and cold and scared, you taught us something important. You taught us that being lost doesn't mean being forgotten. That help can come from unexpected places. That kindness transcends species. I just looked for scared kids, Leo replied, his standard response. Yes, Thelmara said, and in doing so, you demonstrated what your species brings to the galactic community. Not the biggest weapons, not the fastest ships, not the most advanced computers. You bring the wisdom to remember that beneath all our differences we share common emotions and needs. She paused, her golden eyes bright. The Dremori have decided to honor this. We are establishing the Leo Matsuda Cultural Exchange Center on our homeworld. It will be dedicated to teaching young beings of all species how to understand and connect with those different from themselves. Leo felt embarrassed. That's too much. I don't deserve a whole center. You deserve recognition for changing how species interact, Thelmara corrected. But more importantly, your example deserves to be preserved and taught. Too many beings think advancement means technology alone. You showed that true advancement includes retaining our connection to basic compassion. The center opened a year later. Leo attended the ceremony, uncomfortable with the attention but honored by the thought. The facility was beautiful, designed to accommodate multiple species comfortably. Young beings from across council space would come to learn not just about different cultures, but about the emotional intelligence needed to truly understand those cultures. The core curriculum was simple. Observe carefully, listen actively, consider emotional context, and remember that different does not mean incomprehensible. Students learned to combine analytical thinking with intuitive understanding, much like Leo had done in those ventilation shafts years ago. After the ceremony, Leo stood with Thelmara on a balcony overlooking the Dremori city. It was beautiful, all crystal spires and flowing architecture. You changed the galaxy, Leo Matsuda, Thelmara said. The galaxy changed itself, Leo replied. I just helped some kids. And that humble perspective is precisely why your impact was so profound. You never sought recognition. You simply did what felt right. That authenticity resonates across species. So what happens now? Leo asked. Now? Now hundreds of young beings will learn to think as you think, to see as you see, to remember that problems are solved not just with technology but with understanding. Your approach will spread far beyond your lifetime. That's a lot of pressure to put on a barber. Thelmara made her rumbling laugh. You are not just a barber. You never were. You are a teacher, though you never sought the title. You are a healer, though you have no medical training. You are a bridge between beings built from patience and compassion. Leo considered this. I'm still going back to my shop. Of course you are. That is where you belong. But know that your shop is not separate from this greater work. Every person you talk to, every small kindness you show, every connection you make, it all matters. That is the lesson. Greatness is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it is quiet and repeated, day after day in a small barbershop on an asteroid colony. Leo returned to New Vancouver Station and his simple life, but he found new purpose in the daily work. Each customer, human or alien, received not just a haircut but a moment of genuine attention. He asked about their lives. He listened to their problems. He offered perspective when appropriate and silence when needed. Word spread that his shop was not just for haircuts, but for conversation, for connection, for a brief moment of feeling heard. Beings came from across the sector not because Leo was famous, but because he was present. Years passed. Leo's hair went from gray to white. His hands developed arthritis, making the scissors harder to hold. But he kept working, kept listening, kept being there for whoever walked through his door. On a cold station morning when Leo was 68, a young human couple entered his shop with a small child. The boy looked nervous, shy. His first haircut, the father explained. We wanted it to be special. Leo smiled and knelt down to the child's level. What's your name? Timothy, the boy whispered. Nice to meet you, Timothy. You know, I've cut hair for people from about 100 different species. Each one special in their own way. Just like you. The boy's eyes widened. Really? 100? Really? And you know what I learned? Everybody gets nervous about new experiences. That's normal. But the way to handle it is to remember that there are good people who want to help. You just have to let them. Timothy climbed into the chair, his fear replaced by curiosity. Leo cut his hair carefully, talking about the stars and the station and the many different beings who shared this part of space. When he finished, the boy looked in the mirror and grinned. I look older. You are older. Every day you're older. Every day you learn something new. That's how life works. The parents paid and thanked him. As they left, the mother turned back. You're the one who found those dragons all those years ago, aren't you? Long time ago, yes. I was a kid when that happened. The story always stuck with me. About how being ordinary doesn't mean being unable to do extraordinary things. Everyone's capable of extraordinary things, Leo replied. Most just don't get the chance to prove it in ways that make the news. After they left, Leo sat in his empty shop and thought about time. So many years since that frightening crawl through dark ventilation shafts, so many changes in the galaxy. And yet in his small way, life remained consistent. People needed help and he tried to provide it. That evening, Walter brought noodles as he had done for decades. They ate together in comfortable silence, two old friends who didn't need words to communicate. You ever regret it? Walter asked finally. Staying here instead of taking one of those fancy positions they offered? Leo considered the question. No, this is where I belong. These people are my people. This work is my work. You could have been rich. I'm rich enough. Got food, got a roof, got friends. What else matters? Walter smiled. Still the same Leo after all these years. That's the point, I think. Being the same person whether people are watching or not. That's integrity. 10 years later, when Leo was 78 and his hands shook too much to hold scissors steady, he finally retired. The colony held a small ceremony. Nothing fancy, just neighbors and customers gathering to say thank you. Aliens from a dozen species attended, some having traveled for weeks. Ember arrived, now a full ambassador like her mother had been. She was massive and magnificent, her scales gleaming with authority. But when she saw Leo, her formal demeanor softened. Uncle Leo, she said gently, I heard you were closing the shop. Time catches everyone eventually, Leo replied. My hands don't work like they used to. You gave me my life. You gave my siblings our lives. You changed how species see each other. And through it all, you stayed humble and kind. I cut hair and talk to people. That's all. Ember made a warm, rumbling sound. Yes, and sometimes that is everything. She presented him with a final gift, a crystal from the Dremori homeworld, naturally formed, glowing with inner light. This will light your home, she said, and remind you that you brought light to many lives. The ceremony ended with food and stories. People shared memories of conversations in Leo's chair, of advice given, of moments when a simple haircut had become something more meaningful. Leo listened and smiled, grateful for a life well lived. He spent his retirement reading, walking the station corridors, visiting with friends. He watched news from across the galaxy and saw the changes continuing. More species adopted the Matsuda method. More facilities focused on emotional intelligence alongside technology. The Cultural Exchange Center on the Dremori homeworld graduated its 5th class, young beings trained to bridge differences with understanding. On his 85th birthday, Leo received a message from the Galactic Council. They wanted to award him the Star of Unity, the highest civilian honor given to those who advanced interspecies cooperation. The ceremony would be on the council station, broadcast across hundreds of worlds. Leo declined politely. He suggested they give the award to Patricia instead, who had done the real work of implementing lasting change. The council compromised, giving the award to both of them but allowing Leo to accept via video link from his small apartment. During the ceremony, the council head spoke about how one person's simple act of compassion had rippled across decades and light years, how it had changed policies, attitudes, and relationships, how it proved that advancement was not just about technology, but about retaining fundamental decency. Leo watched the broadcast from his couch, uncomfortable with the praise but understanding why it mattered to people. They needed heroes who were not warriors or geniuses, but ordinary beings who did extraordinary things through basic goodness. When his turn came to speak, Leo kept it brief. I appreciate this honor, but I want everyone to know that what I did was not special. Caring about others should be normal. Helping those in need should be expected. If my story inspired people, I'm glad. But the real story is that every single being watching this has the capacity to do what I did. You don't need special training. You don't need advanced technology. You just need to pay attention and care enough to act. The speech was short, simple, and authentic. It was shared more than any other council address in history. Leo lived to be 92. In his final days, surrounded by friends and with Walter holding his hand, he remained peaceful. He had lived exactly the life he wanted, simple, honest, and connected to others. His funeral was attended by thousands. Beings from across the galaxy came to pay respects. The 6 dragons arrived, now elders in their own species, to honor the human who had saved them and in doing so, changed everything. Ember spoke at the service. Uncle Leo taught us that the most important things are often the simplest. That connection matters more than achievement. That being present is more valuable than being powerful. His life was not about grand gestures but about consistent kindness. And that consistency changed the galaxy. They buried him on Luna Station 7, in a memorial garden that overlooked Earth. His gravestone was simple, bearing only his name and dates, and one line he had requested: he helped when he could. But his legacy lived on in 1,000 ways. In the Matsuda method used across the galaxy, in the Cultural Exchange Center that bore his name, in the countless beings who had learned from his example that ordinary people could do extraordinary things through simple compassion. The dragons visited his grave every year, all 6 of them together, and they would sit in silence remembering the barber who had found them in darkness and brought them back to light. And in barbershops across human space, in small businesses on asteroid colonies and distant outposts, beings continued the work Leo had exemplified. They listened to their customers. They treated everyone with dignity. They remembered that behind every face, human or alien, was a person deserving of attention and kindness, because that was the real lesson of Leo Matsuda's life. Not that one person could save the galaxy, but that one person choosing to care could start ripples that never stop spreading. And when enough people made that choice, when enough beings decided that compassion mattered as much as capability, the galaxy became a better place for everyone. In the end, Leo was right. He was just a barber who helped some lost kids. But sometimes that is exactly what the galaxy needs most. Ordinary people who remember that beneath all our differences, We are all just trying to find our way home, and we all deserve someone who cares enough to help us get there. That was humanity's gift to the stars. Not their weapons or their ships or their technology, but their stubborn, persistent, beautiful insistence that everyone matters, that kindness is strength, and that the simplest gesture of help can change everything. Humanity, fuck yeah.